What did you say it is?
I don't
Facebook
know.
Live?
Did you say cheese?
So maybe somebody could go on Facebook Live and see if we're really live.
I am.
Are we live?
On the Women of Grace, or are you on Corinne?
I think I'm on me. I think. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, you are.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Or I can move the camera.
No, it's okay. No, I moved back.
You're
there.
good.
All right, so here we are.
Yeah.
So who's seeing that?
Yeah.
Anybody?
Anybody? Are we sure we want to do this?
Even my mom?
Yes, she can see this. We'll save it. Is that okay?
Yeah.
I probably should have asked you before.
No, it's
Yeah.
fine.
We planned way ahead.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Okay, so let's get really serious here because
I'm serious.
we got serious stuff to talk about. Let's start with the scope of alarm, where you all are serving, and how you're engaged in those countries. So, what is the primary focus of alarm?
Thank you. First, before I answer the question, I want to repeat or reiterate what Corinne said. I want to say thank you, and that's a big thank you. And their lives that have been transformed again. This is just one story, and the 54 who graduated, they have stories. But not only them, but we have stories of the life they have already transformed, even the process of the 3 years. And there were stories even from the government officials who were there. So God continues to bless your efforts beyond what we can describe tonight. So on behalf of the Alarm, especially the Rwanda team, and the many denominations that send their wives and their women, and these ladies, 54 of them, came from more than 10 different denominations. And different tribes who used to kill each other. Now these women have bonded, and so what you have done is beyond what we can describe. So I want to say thank you, and thank you for your leadership. Yeah. Now the scope.
Thanks. And you don't have to answer any of my questions. You can just
Okay.
talk.
The scope of Alarm, really, the primary focus is leadership for reconciliation. So we do leadership development, and what kind of leaders? Rwanda and Africa, more the troubles that we have in sub-Saharan Africa, more of the conflicts, the tribalism, the genocide, those are results of bad leadership. Either colonial mentality among our leaders or Africa chief mentality. Not really leading to serve those under you, not leading for the well-being of the people you are serving, but to serve just for yourself, and that's what has happened. And so that's why we focus not only on just leaders, but servant leadership. How do we develop Christ-like leadership among our leaders? And when we talk about the leadership, as Michelle mentioned, we began by thinking that we can maybe we can begin by pastors, but then we realized that's not the way the Bible talks about. The Bible talks about the believers, every believer being a minister, being gifted, so that all what we do, each one of us using the gifts, so that the whole body can grow together. And therefore we began to realize that the leaders in Rwanda who were engaged in killing or encouraging killing, or the lawyers who are taking bribes, the judges who are taking $50 to deny this widow her land, and they go to church. But they have no clue how their Christian faith impacts what they do every day. And so we began then to realize that, no, we need to train, we need to disciple these professionals, these Christian professionals, so that wherever God has them, whether they are business or lawyers or judges, or police officers or government officials, they lead from their identity in Christ. They lead as Christ followers, not like everybody else. And so that's why we began to train different levels of leadership. So we focus on leadership, but the leadership has to bring reconciliation. Because most of the leaders, as I mentioned, they have used tribes to divide the people so they can get to their self-serving purpose. And so you will find leaders using their tribes or their region or their communities to divide the people so that they continue to stay in leadership or they get voted. And so then their leadership is bringing more divisions, is not inclusion. So we focus on leadership. Then how do we develop leaders who reconcile? What are the skills that they need, not only to lead, but what are the skills they need to bring reconciliation? What are the theological messages? What does the Bible say about forgiveness and reconciliation? And then the Christian lawyers, how do they move from the punitive, retributive, vengeful justice to restorative justice, to mediation, to solve the problems or the issues within the family, rather than making families win and lose? Then the families are torn apart by those systems. And so we realize that it is from the Christian perspective, from the biblical justice, that we begin to talk about God's justice and then reconciliation, then forgiveness and the unity. So really our focus is leadership and reconciliation. Now, those can be big themes or can be even isolated from the reality. So how do you actually know that these women whose husbands killed each other, that they have reconciled? If you don't create a platform through which they can actually come together. So the community transformation and the microfinance, or the making the beads or the baskets and so forth, or working the coffee plantation, is actually an opportunity for those tribes who had been killing each other to come together to learn how to work together. And so when they are weaving the baskets, those women, they are not just weaving the basket, they are weaving their hearts together. And so those that's 20% of what we do, but it is where we practice then servant leadership. It is where we practice forgiveness and reconciliation. We try to avoid the American kind of attitude, I forgive you, but I don't want to meet you again. You know, no, I forgive you, but can we hope again? I forgive you, can we hope that there will be reconciliation? And so you bring them into business, into skill sets, into microfinance, into raising chicken or pigs, not only to encourage them to develop their own, economic empowerment, but to build their hearts, their communities together. So our mission, as we say in, maybe some of you have this is really, we exist as an organization to develop servant leaders in the church and in the community. Now, in the church, pastors, women leaders, pastors, in the church, whether you are youth or pastor or women, that's in the church. But then in the community, we have Christian leaders who are government officials, members of parliament, teachers, doctors, and farmers, and all those Christians who are there. We develop them, and so we develop them so that they reconcile broken relationships and reconcile lives transformed or impacted by injustice and violence. And so it is really reconciliation. It is leadership for reconciliation, leadership for justice, biblical justice. So now we started in Rwanda because of the genocide, but Rwanda's problem of tribalism and nominal Christianity is not just unique to Rwanda, but most of the countries in East Africa, we have the same problem. People have come to Christ, but they have not been discipled. And so we grew the ministry, but also to deal with the inability of the churches to respond to tribalism in our region. And so currently we are working in 8 countries, so Rwanda, Burundi, Congo, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Sudan, and South Sudan. And we have about 70 full-time staff in those 8 countries. Our main office is not in Dallas. Dallas is a support office, but our main office, our headquarters, is in Nairobi, Kenya. Because that's where I was when I started the ministry in 1994, because I was at the seminary in Nairobi when the genocide happened, which became the beginning of the organization. So that's a long answer.
That's a great answer. So you mentioned that the issues in the areas that Alarm works in is tribalism, which we don't use the word tribes here, but I think we have a lot of tribes here. So I want to make sure that and I'm going to set you up for this because I can say this because I am an American, that we have so much to learn from what's happening in Alarm that we could use here. Talk a little bit about, because you live part of the time here in the U.S. and you live part of the time in Alarm. So how does what's happening in Africa also happening here?
Indeed, yes. In America, you don't have the Hutus and Tutsis like we had in Rwanda who killed each other, but we have the Republicans and Democrats. And so those are like tribes. But also we have racial tension. And so, we are human, and so we have this tendency to exclude those who are different from us. But also you have denominations. In Africa, we're not divided by tribes, but also denominations divide the people. And so you find even those who say they are Christians, then they can't fellowship together because some are Anglican, Presbyterian, Baptist, Lutheran, and then they forget that they belong to the body of believers. And so the same, and I have mentioned, even though in Rwanda in 1994 we killed each other with the machetes, in the US I hear words, we don't have machetes, but you people don't have machetes, but use words to kill each other. So really there's animosity either between the political parties or between there's tension between races, but also there is this brokenness in our families. And so you don't have to be Hutu and Tutsis to experience brokenness. We have brokenness within even our families. And so the Ministry of Reconciliation, the Ministry of dealing with forgiveness and breeding communities, you don't have to be in Rwanda or in Sudan. You have to be human and then begin to realize that is brokenness. On a bigger scale, it can be Rwanda. On a small scale, it can be my family. So the key is, as Christians, how do we build a relationship? How do we work on brokenness? How do we reconcile? How do we forgive one another? How do we trust? How do we begin to build trust? And so what we, in fact, I would say that we have been learning together. Those who come, I'm sure those of you who have been in Rwanda, most of the members here have been in Rwanda most, and I hope that we will grow to go to other countries. And but those who have been with us in Rwanda or other countries from the US, they are coming back. They're becoming to examine. This is what is happening in Rwanda. What can we do? So, for example, already the church, the Trinity Church. So in Dallas now there are 5 churches that have been partnering with Alarm. Now they have come together because of the experience they have seen in Rwanda or in Burundi, in Congo, or in South Sudan. These 5 churches, one is a Hispanic church, another is Caucasian church, another is an African American, another is an Asian Baptist church. And so 5 churches now in Dallas, they are working together to begin to deal with racial reconciliation. And so they are working together from different denominations. Most of them are Bible churches, they are Baptist, but they have realized that I think we need to practice what we are learning from Alarm. And so we exchange, we help each other to grow. So, but I would say what we are struggling with in Rwanda, it is broken relationships. It may be on a national scale, or it could be on a family scale. So the key is how, as Christians, how we're practicing the biblical principles of love, care, forgiveness, and reconciliation. How do we become people of peace, whether in our family, in our communities, and then how do we become the light? And so here we are challenging the American Christians. Remember that your identity is in Christ. You are not just a Democrat, Republican. Yes, you are, but your identity is not that. Your identity is Christ first. You are Christian first. Then you are Christian who happen to be a Hutu or a Tutsi or a lawyer or a judge or a policeman or a member of parliament. Those are not your primary identity. So that you can practice it in Rwanda or in Noblesville.
And I think what we found and what we're finding, and I think what we believe, is that leaders can't take people places that they haven't been. So even as our experience in Rwanda and here, and with the women and people we've encountered, it's the reality of I've got to live it in my personal life as well as my public life. They can't be disconnected, and God is really challenging us and growing us all in that way to grow and change and become people of peace.
Yeah.
And it is our story, not Rwandan story and the U.S. story. It's our collective story, and I think that's been a huge growing place. So we've been focusing our partnership, and we don't have 5 churches working on it, but we did partner with Trinity.
Yes.
So we had 2 that were engaging in this together, and then some others who joined us. So I think there's something for us, I think, to really learn in that. What would it be like to do the same kinds of things that we're experiencing in Rwanda here? To have this room filled with a multitude of churches talking about the same topics that we talked about in Rwanda. So
Yeah, and I was driving on 146
Yeah.
this afternoon,
Yeah.
and I passed big churches, and so I was saying, I wonder why Corinne has not gone to invite those people to the table. So that's the assignment for you and Michelle.
Okay. We're getting tasks here.
yeah, because really it took like Keith to go to Wood Creek. You met Marcus?
I did.
Yeah, so, and then...
this is not on my list.
Yes, this is my list, on my list. So really it's intentional, is inviting people to the table, say, hey, we are learning together. We are making this journey with the brothers and sisters in Africa there. Would you join us? Come and see, and you will be surprised the response. Yeah, so I will encourage you to talk to these other tribes around here.
These other tribes.
Yeah,
All right.
and then see what will happen, yeah.
Well, that just takes me to my next question. So our theme for tonight is really Ephesians 3:20, about that God is limitless, and that we can accomplish so much more because of his work within us. So I know that you just illustrated that. You are a big dreamer.
Amen.
And but God has continued to exceed your dreams in a variety of ways. So would you share just a couple of examples of how, either recent or further back, on how God has just exceeded your expectations and imagination?
Thank you. Our God is big, and sometimes I say sometimes we tie God's hands behind, and God is rich. God wants to use us. God wants to deploy us, but sometimes our view of God, maybe sometimes our humanity, maybe our fear, maybe our little faith. You know, Jesus always rebuked the disciples, or you lead people of little faith. It is our faith and our obedience that limit God from what he can do. Now, again, from the beginning, I started by selling my suit and my books after graduation to pay a lawyer like Joe to work on the legal document for Kenya registration. And so that's what it took. But my wife trusted that I was not losing my mind, and she trusted that she committed to follow me as wherever God is calling us. And so we were just my wife and our 4 kids, we were young. But I knew if God was calling me, it was not me. I happened to be the one who called, but God was going to raise leaders joining me around me, but I had to accept to lead. And so from that beginning, I would say, in the last 25 years, we have seen the ministry grow from just me, my wife, and the kids to these 70 capable, good leaders. Some have met them. They are better leaders than I am. I only have the privilege to be called their leader. And it's not because I'm more knowledgeable, more smarter than them. But for me to see these leaders, theologians, lawyers, social workers working together with the same vision, same mission, and not only training the pastors, but also training government officials, from the members of parliament to senators to the street people. It's a privilege. It's beyond. When I began, I thought I was going to deal with the pastors, but God opened my eyes, but also opened the doors. And so today, as I speak, when I look back, the surprises of God is even yesterday I was editing a memorandum of understanding between Alarm Burundi and the office of the national speaker of National Assembly. That's like who you recall here is like Paul Ryan, you know.
Okay.
So it is the members of parliament and the senators in Burundi. We are working on an MOU to train them in good governance, in biblical justice and leadership. I never expected us to train those leaders. And so that's door open, and we are working on an MOU in the same country with the top military school, just like the West Point of the US, because they want some of the training we do to be done in the national military school. 3 of our courses are being taught in the National Police Academy in Uganda already. And so whether they are Christians or not, in the Sudan, we have been working with the religious leaders, imams and Christians. And in fact, 2 years ago, I was in Sudan complaining about the beating and the torturing of my colleagues. And when I went to this government office, this top officer, I said, we hate alarm, but we also love alarm. I said, what? Say, some of us hate alarm, and some of us love alarm. So I told him, okay, so what does it mean? I told him when I went to the US, I told him my friend took him to a restaurant. There was a soup called sweet and sour chicken soup. And then I ordered it. And then when I took the soup, it was just soup. I didn't taste the sourness, I didn't taste the sweet, it was just soup. I didn't tell the difference between the pork soup and this soup. So I told him, so what's the difference between hate and... So he said, many of us don't like alarm because alarm is building what we are trying to destroy with the church. Because they went back to Islamic Sharia law. They have been persecuting the church. So, but alarm is one of the only organizations, I think there are not many organizations that are training, equipping leaders in Sudan who are under persecution, who are under torture, who are being beaten up. The church are being destroyed every day. And so we are strengthening. So he said, we hate alarm because you are building what you are trying to destroy. So I say, okay, why do you love alarm? He said, alarm brings enemies together, even people that the government cannot bring together on one table. And so he said, if you can stop just the church business, do the other thing, then we will love you more. I say, no, actually, the reason why we do the second is because we are the first. If we lose the church, then we can do the second. I say, oh, okay. So anyway, so for me, to get that kind of in a context of Muslim, that they want our approach to bringing enemies together, they see the value that there is a need for reconciliation. It's not just Christian and nonsense, which they call nonsense. No, the Christians have a message that the nation needs. And of course, we are looking at how do we begin to see churches, pastors from different denominations, different tribes begin to work together. And so we are working with the lawyers, Jeff and the other lawyers who were in Rwanda with me. They met, so we were in Gisenyi at the border with Congo, and so we invited the Congo lawyers to come to greet the Joe and his team. And because we tried to cross, actually the border was closed. Now, after the meeting, the Joe and Jason and the other lawyers, they came, they say, I think what they are doing, we can support them. They raise funds to support the legal aid clinic in the Congo. Now, I can't tell you how many children, how many youth, last year alone, maybe over 90 young minors who were taken out of jail. Sometimes just put in jail because they stole a chicken, which is like $15 or $17. Then they are in jail for 3 years. They could stay there if nobody comes. And so last year, a tribe in Congo that is forgotten even by the government, the Pygmies, for the first time, 200 children in that tribe, age 2 to 17, 2 days to 17 years old, for the first time in their tribe, they were given a birth certificate. But the court had to move from Goma to the bush. Why? Because we had trained the lawyers, and some of those lawyers we had trained, one of them had become the president of the children's court. And so he had already bought into the, as a Christian, what's my responsibility for those who are neglected, those who don't count, those who are still, even though they have low Q, they are creating God's image. And so we worked together to get the permission from the Minister of Justice in Kinshasa to move the court for 2 days in the bush so that those people can be counted. And so there are lawyers in Rwanda who are taking the case of the people who are in Niger since the genocide until today and never tried because their neighbors didn't like them. They say, oh, they killed. So for 25 years there in Niger, nobody has looked at their case. So the Christian lawyers are taking those cases. And so because they were trained, they realized that, no, we are Christian, and then we happen to be lawyers. So what are we doing with our calling as lawyers? If we can take these cases of widows and so forth, if we can change the law. So God is going to surprise us by, we train, then we see people take the training to a level we never dreamed of. And so there are many things that God is doing, and He's going to encourage us that your efforts. I would maybe give one last example. Apart from a country, there's a lady who is just graduated from the WATI, and when she started, not even her church was 100% supportive. Through the training, she began to train her own people in the community, in the village. So her county now has given her an award as the best leader in transforming the communities. She worked on the basic of home economics to teach women how to feed their babies. That county, because of her, has reduced the malnutrition.
Wow.
And she, the health department in that county has recognized her as contributing to reducing the malnutrition. But it is through the training, through leadership, through the basics on home economics and caring. And so those women, those men, those lawyers, those pastors, they are making differences that we didn't think of. So God continues to encourage us to even dream big and just not limit ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, and the beautiful thing is everything Alarm does is so holistic in terms of the whole being. Spiritual, physical, social, it's the whole, so that it is making, it's transforming people and communities in terms of that. So you gave some really big examples in terms of working with government officials and pastors, but I think the other thing that I love about Alarm is you go into a community and you ask what it needs, or a country and what it needs. So one of the things that Alarm does in Rwanda, beyond these huge things related to the government and officials and attorneys and pastors, you also have a girls' school. Why do you have a girls' school?
You can talk about change, as I mentioned, I alone, until you create something that will show that is possible, it will still be theories. So we began with the Institute for Women of Excellency in 2006 because two reasons. In that region where the school is, the killing started there in 1994. So the students we began with, the girls we began with, most of them, their parents had been murdered, and they were like 3-4 years old. They were taken in by well-wishers who would not send them to school. And so when we started, we say, okay, two things. We need to make sure there's a future of the women. Of course, that time, after the genocide, over 64% of the population were women because most of the men had been murdered. Now, the women previously had never been gone to school. So now you have a state, you have a nation full of widows and survivors women who are not going to be able to make a leadership decision. Secondly, the idea of Rwanda, women cannot, they are inferior. They cannot do math, science, and technology. So we started school first to provide opportunity for girls to go to school, but also a school that will change the mentality about women. That's why the school we started is math, physics, and IT. And so the school, the other part of the school was if I want to have leaders, so the killing in Rwanda happened because people were educated up here, but no heart. And so we began to say, if we want to develop future leaders of our nation, then we need to develop leaders who have the head and the heart. And so that's how we started the school, to provide examples of what kind of leadership is needed that transforms the mind, but also the heart, and then also the society's thinking culture that the women cannot do this and that. So the school has been one of the best in that region. They have performed well. In fact, last year, the national exam at the end of the sixth year of high school. At the end of the third year of high school, you have to pass a national exam to go to the last 3 years of high school, and that exam determines what options or what career you will follow in the last 3 years. At the end of the last 3 years, which is end of 6 years of high school, you pass a national exam to get a government diploma. Now, most schools will have maybe 5% of people pass the national exam. So last year, we had 10 kids all pass the national exam, 100%. And so the advantage is among the 10 students, then the government has a percentage of those 10 who will go to government university with full scholarships. And then the others, depending on how much they got, who will get partial scholarships. And so the school is not just doing well in the physics, math, and IT, but also they are doing well on the level of national score. And so that is changing then the way the women see themselves now. The women say, oh, we can do math, we can do physics. But also the girls that go through the school, they are not just smart here because they have every day they have chapel, they have chaplain, so they are developing character development. And so that's really why we started the school, so that we provide future women leaders who have not only the head, but also the heart, who are leading like Christ.
Yeah, I have a friend who says about UA, is we do not know what is in that classroom, what future they will have. It could be the cure of cancer, it could be the next leader of Rwanda, it could be, like, it's so important that we continue to do that, and I love that about Lyme. So what else would you like to say to our friends here?
Come. Bring your friends. One of the encouragements that, or even going back to Iwe, actually, the reason why Iwe has been the best is because we have had, you went there, you saw, like, even the IT is, the name of the hall is Hajans Hall. Hajans is a family in Dallas. Their kid, when he was in second year of university here, he left, he went to teach Chris, his name is Chris. He left for 1 year, he was teaching the first classes of computer using the 2 old laptops that his father, who works for the TI in Dallas, put together and began that class. The math, we have sent teacher of math from the US when they closed in May. The students are still going on in Iwe. So we have sent math teachers to work with the teachers to work together, teach them how to teach math. And so we have had teachers and leaders. We have, I talk about the lawyers and the leaders and the mothers and so forth, to go there to work with those pastors or lawyers and so forth. The reason why we are doing much better is because we have worked with partners like you to come to work with our staff to give the best they can give. And so I know that you have people here who are gifted. We have men and women who are gifted in what they do, who will come and say, no, I want to come for a week. What can I do? What can I contribute to? Because until you are there, you don't know that what you have is valuable. And because some of you look at yourself in the context of Noblesville, then you say, I don't know anything. No, some of you know. I tell the people, if you have been attending this church for 5 years or attending the women's ministries or what, you are more knowledgeable in the Bible and theology and discipleship more than 80% of the pastors in the village there. And so we have more. But also the other side is, you can't grow if you just keep doing what you do. And so we want people to grow. We want people to grow both in our relationships by serving. When we serve, we are served. And so as you, my friends here, we want you to come, we want you to go, we want you to send, we want you to give, we want you to invest. And so I want to encourage the investment. Secondly, I want to say prayers make a big difference. Our staff, as I say, we have 70 full-time staff. Actually, those are staff that are full-time in the offices, permanent jobs. But I'm not counting the teachers at the UA. I'm not counting the workers at the Chimbiri plantation. I'm not talking about those in projects. So if I count them, there will be more. Yeah. But those guys who are 24/7 there, while I'm eating pizzas and hamburgers here, many times they need prayers. So we have staff like in northern Uganda who are dealing with the refugees who fled South Sudan to Uganda. Our staff, sometimes they get traumatized because they are dealing with people who are traumatized. Our staff in Sudan, South Sudan, last year we had to get them out of South Sudan to Rwanda for a week to rest because they were facing secondary trauma because they are dealing with the pastors. In fact, when I was there myself last year, I had to meet pastors, unfortunately, who were made to watch their wives and daughters raped, to punish them by the other tribe. Now, those pastors are expected by the members of the congregation to pastor like nothing happened. So our staff who spend time with those pastors, they get traumatized. So they need prayer, they need to rest. And so sometimes we have to raise funds to get them out of the situation so they can rest. But more importantly, what I will ask is, many of you have friends who maybe were not here, who may have means to support the ministries. We are working on, for your information,
Okay.
you know it. The women, out of the women that you trained, we have selected a group of, I think 15 of them, to do more training of them so that we begin to work with them in their region, their provinces, as they train others. And so this now selected few from the 54, they are going to lead in their provinces more women, so they will be duplicating what we have done for them. They will do it in their provinces because we can train every woman leader. And so this is going to be really my call to this community here today to continue to support this next phase of training the trainers who will be now doing this in their provinces. And so that's really the big vision we have, is how can we have trained these women who have graduated, how can we empower them more? Then we begin maybe in the next future, when you are taking team, you are not in Kigali. Maybe you are in Byumba. Maybe you're in the West Province. Maybe you are in the East Province, working with those you train to train their fellow women leaders from their districts. And so I'm actually excited about this next level of going back to the villages where these women, we are now training with them. We're not training them, but we are training with them. Alongside them, as they train more women. So if we have 15 in different regions at the same time, we may be training 300 women leaders in Rwanda at the same time, because we have now an army of women trained. And I would say in Africa, I will finish with this, we say if you educate a man, you educate one person. If you educate a woman, you educate the whole nation. And that's what's happening with the women. Whether it's Rwanda, the WTI in Rwanda, or WTI in Burundi, WTI in Uganda, I see the women being more faithful, taking what they are trained to do in their communities. And so please come, keep coming.
Yes. So this next year, we are doing the training of trainers for the WLTI. Also doing attorney trips.
This is not the next year.
This year, yeah. Well, yes. In a couple weeks,
yeah.
And hoping to build into the community transformation place. So lots and lots of opportunities for folks to get involved.
Yeah,
so thank you for sharing. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So we're gonna finish this.